Gumsuckers.
By El Dorado Dangerfield. Part 1. A friend once said to me, "The funny thing about airports is you can be whoever you want to be." Now, when I read it back on paper, it doesn't make any fucking sense, but at the time it was the most profound thing I'd ever heard. It was nice thought, but for me, the departure lounge was a cold waiting room for inevitable death. There is no time for pretend. I'm always too busy controlling my anxieties and imposing fears. I stand at the big glass windows common to every shite airport around the world and helplessly gaze out at the planes. Forget aerospace engineers and experts. Those flimsy-looking death machines always look beat to shit. The retired achievements of human engineering. Old horses that nobody wants to bet on. I always watch the captain and his co-pilot in the cockpit, applying their fake tan, fumbling with the knobs and switches. They look like two kids getting ready for Halloween. It's all a big game to them. They're talking to gibberish to each other, debating about whether any of the air hostess is up for giving out a hand job. All pilots sound unsure to me. Unsure of the weather, unsure of the altitude, unsure of the destination or why the flight's been delayed. They're always completely hungover from a night of shagging the young flight attendants, wild staff nights in at expensive hotels. They speak in that monotonous pilot's tone, half-hearted words of welcome and thanks, whilst the flight attendants float up and down the aisle making sure the irrelevant procedures are in place, with their hauntingly fake smiles of hospitality. Once I've boarded, and I've comfortably strapped myself to my seat, with the belt cutting off the circulation of blood to my legs and all my electronics switched off because the placebo effects of following these pointless rules keeps me calm whilst I wait for the pilot to welcome us on board. All pilots sound unsure to me, unsure of the weather, unsure of the altitude they'll be flying at, unsure of the destination or why takeoff has been delayed. I have to watch the flight attendants' facial expressions before, during, and after takeoff. It helps me relax. Considering them to have the most verified experience of flying, familiar with every click, crack, and bang like a brain surgeon recognizes every tiny nerve. However, my anxiety convinces me there's something seriously wrong. The plane's going down for sure. The engine doesn't sound quite right. The brain surgeons slipped and cut the wrong vein, and there's blood and gasoline pouring out all over the place. My muscles start to tighten. My jaw clenches up, my teeth grinding back and forth repeatedly until my cheekbones ache and my throat turns to sand. I'm yelling, "I need a glass of fucking water over here." And if the flight attendants are laid back, not in a great hurry to serve me, or talking unprofessionally to their colleagues about who fucked who last night, that little whore, only then can I relax and start breathing again. I hadn't flown in 3 years, avoiding it religiously by using the much better faith of train travel, long drawn-out rides across vast lands, watching the earth change before your own eyes. I'd just done this all the way from my hometown in Scotland to the south of Vietnam. So by the time I found myself in Ho Chi Minh International Airport in the middle of a monsoon, I began to feel the fear creeping back. All the insecurities of flying came flooding back. I stood by the big windows and watched the clouds cackle in the sky and roar down on the helpless world. The pilots sat in their death machines fiddling, and all the little Vietnamese workers in their mushroom hats swarmed around them, talking into their flashing radios coded nonsense that meant something to someone somewhere, attaching the long cold tunnel that leads to what seems to me like death row. I felt completely and utterly helpless in every sense of the word. I had been moving around with 3 English boys I'd met in Hanoi. They kept saying things to me like, "That weather doesn't sound too healthy. My uncle's a pilot and he says lightning can bring a plane down in a flash." I ignored their persistent attempts to make me feel worse. We sat in the bar and waited for the boarding call. I asked the bartender to make me up something fairly lethal to help take the edge off. "How about a Long Island iced tea?" he suggested. I knocked it back and ordered a beer to chase. The boys went on, trying to scare me, but I focused my mind elsewhere and drank a second beer. A couple of girls sat down opposite us. One of them caught my eye and smiled. She was blonde, probably Scandinavian or something similar. She had the most enchanting eyes, a rich ocean blue. They were deep and full of life. They made my heart drop to the floor. I admired her colorful, ragged sarong and greasy hair, and the way she lazily tied it back with an elastic band. I wanted to go over and talk to her, but it was useless. My brain was melting down, and I was too busy trying to control my anxieties. I drank 2 more beers and began to realize I was completely smashed. The boys kept hampering on, and the blonde girl kept glancing at me, feeding me smiles, torturing my inhibitions and making me feel sad. It had been so long since I'd felt the gentle touch of a woman, and here was this Scandinavian goddess across the room toying with my pain, teasing me with what I can't just reach out and touch. The plane finally boarded. I fumbled my passport and papers and dropped them all over the ground. The flight attendant looked me in the eye and asked if I was drunk. I wanted to ask her, did the captain's cock tasted like you'd hoped it would? Instead, I dodged the question and squeezed my way through the aisle, trying to connect the digits and letters on my ticket to the ones above the seats, but my eyes just wandered off in all directions. I sat down and started my routine. I stared out the oval window and decided it offered little protection from the outside world. Surely it will crumble under the pressure of this huge storm, considering strongly about mentioning it to the flight attendant, but finally deciding this could only add to her suspicion that I was severely intoxicated. The rain battered down relentlessly on the 2 wings. There was one of those strange flashing automobiles with a cherry picker stationed next to my window, and a Vietnamese man in a yellow vest and shorts was jabbing a broom into the engine and sweeping out the trapped rainwater. I felt as sick as a dog. I buried my head into my knees and waited patiently for takeoff. I felt someone sit next to me, but I remained in the fetal position until the flight attendant told me to sit up straight. When I sat back, all I could see was those enchanting ocean eyes, a few centimeters away this time, and more blue, more mysterious, and more painful than ever before. I acknowledged her with a smile. She thought carefully for a moment and said, "You're that boy who was staring at me in the bar, aren't you?" I told her I wasn't staring, she just happened to be sitting opposite me. She seemed disappointed with this. I corrected myself and said I was guilty of staring, but who could blame me? She was pretty. "You drank like 3 beers in half an hour. You must be feeling drunk." "No," she inquired. "Yes, very. And actually it was 4 beers and a Long Island iced tea." I corrected her, and to be honest, I got drunk because I'm shit scared of flying. "Why are you scared?" she asked. I rambled on about uncertainties, devil pilots, and weak plastic windows. The Vietnamese worker outside my window bashing the delicate engine with his damp broom. I told her planes were once reliable machines, but now airline companies tried their hardest to reduce the costs of building them because they wanted to offer cheap flights. She laughed at my conspiracies and took hold of my hand. "I know you were staring at me. I noticed these things. And besides, didn't you notice I was staring at you too?" I blushed and dodged the question. I didn't quite know how to react. Never before had a girl been so forward with me. She asked me why I was flying to Singapore. I told her I had run out of money. I was on my way to Cairns in Australia to find some work. By this point, the plane had backed up onto the runway and the engines began to roar. My face turned from a flushed red instantly to a pale, vile green. My hands started to tremble. I tried to take my hand back to hold onto the seat, but she held it tighter, and even tighter, and began massaging my palm with her thumb. Still, she was smiling, and still torturing my soul with her deep ocean blue eyes. I just stared back into them as the plane took to the air, carefully examining the marble blue patterns, her dilated pupils the center of my world, and everything else was just blurry and irrelevant. Before I had time to worry, I heard the reassuring ding-dong caused by the captain switching off the seatbelt sign. I took a deep breath. "Not so bad, was it?" she asked. I shook my head sheepishly. Her name was Luna Eriksson. She was 28 years old, born and raised in Malmö, Sweden. She worked for IKEA. I told her I thought all Swedish people worked for IKEA and they all wore clogs to work. She said I was silly. I told her this was my first flight in 3 years. I just traveled from Scotland to Vietnam by land, straight through Europe, Russia, Mongolia, and China, and then Vietnam, all because I hated flying. She was most impressed with my feat. She said her job was the best. She had to fly out to major cities and help with the opening of new IKEA stores. Her next job was in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and after that she was unsure of her exact plans. For now, she was just enjoying the tourism and the sunshine. The plane flew without a single hiccup over the South China Sea and landed safely in Singapore. I walked Luna off the plane to collect our luggage. The boys came bundling over and started making jokes, asking if I'd passed out, or cried for that matter. She blanked their questions like a boss and introduced herself as my new girlfriend. Her friend came rushing over and insisted they leave. She wrote her number on the palm of my hand with a black permanent marker and told me to call her if I was still here tomorrow. And just like that off, she went lost to me in the muggy Asian air. We met up the next evening and took long walks around the sleeping city streets. We bought a bottle of red from a bar and sat around on the grass getting drunk. We lay back and watched the stars in their infinite melancholy move through the night sky. She gave me the stare again, that deep marble ocean blue hypnotic stare of hers that takes my breath away. My hands were trembling again. She told me to relax and asked if she could kiss me. I said yes. It was so gentle and sweet. She kissed only my top lip and nibbled for a moment on the bottom lip. She said it was the Scandinavian Christmas tomorrow. The 24th, she and her friend Selma were going to have dinner on the roof of their hotel. She wanted me to join her, and the boys could come too if they wanted. I said I'd be there. The boys thought the dinner was a good idea. We would be flying on Christmas Day anyways. Why not celebrate early for a change? We headed over in our best clothes, whatever wasn't torn or oil-stained from our motorbikes. The dinner was delicious. They had done well. We all got absolutely steaming and decided to hit the clubs immediately. Luna organized a couple of cabs, and we were suddenly rushed off to the main nightlife district of Singapore on a busy Saturday night. The boys went off in search of their own girls, whilst me and Luna sat around at the bar drinking cocktails, getting more drunk, more mad and merry every minute. It was all so perfect, the perfect meal, the perfect girl, and perfect celebration. And how did I get myself into this crazy downfall of a backpacking love affair? I remember grabbing her at one point and saying, "Luna Eriksson Plim, I might be a little bit tipsy, drunk even, but do you know what? I like you. I like you a lot." We got more drunk and somehow fell into dispute. Neither of us had any clue to what the argument resolved around, but we both had the rage and never wanted to see each other again. We stormed off in opposite directions without looking back, wandering through the empty, festive streets of capitalist Asia in all its brutality and crooked ways. The next day, there I was, soaring through the electric atmosphere like a ghost. Luna, however fleeting she was, had instilled a confidence in me. I was flying with confidence, a new man. The wrath of Mother Nature was all around me, protecting the wings of our mechanical bird, carrying the romantics to their paradise in the sun. I viewed the heavens from its oval-shaped eyes. The clouds looked like dry bundles of Elton, giving off no evidence of being damp and transparent, and I imagined placing my tired body upon either one of them and falling into a deep sleep. It didn't feel like Christmas, though. There was no evergreen tree decorated with sparkling objects, no colorful presents bearing my name. My family was celebrating in a distant land. Even the turkey on my tray was tasteless, failing to trigger any seasonal memories. In fact, the whole scene was a showcase of black and white motions. Although I was next to a few new friends, I now felt lonesome for the first time in my life. What lay ahead was unclear. I had little money to sustain myself, but for me, this was rarely an issue worth fomenting. I was rich in energy and believed strongly that these notions would frame my success. I didn't want to harness any caution to my fragile skeleton, for my bones were already brittle and the skin softened by the past. Somehow I'd managed to organize a laboring job on a banana plantation as I slumbered through Southeast Asia. This position was sure to pay me about $600 a week and promised to be culturally rich in experience. I was excited, for the little muscles I possessed had gradually deteriorated through laziness, and they needed the exercise. My fatigue was forlorn, and the politics of my life were undergoing an intricate revolution. I was looking forward to a dramatic change in my diet. Asia had fueled my greed for salt and alcohol, a tradition that was all too familiar. I had spent the last 2 months hopelessly drunk on the verge of permanent sickness. I had taken as little precaution as possible and went all out on a clarified binge. Prior to my departure, East those I love had seen me knuckle down, power through debt and depression, and earn the right to let it all out, to happily throw aside my conceptions of life on Earth. to allow everything I'd previously learned about economics and stability, relationships and happiness slip away. I wanted to reconceive myself in an existence of sincerity and exploit everything life could offer. The weather on Boxing Day was predictable. Harsh rays from a sun I'd never known so well slowly began cremating my pale shell. As I strolled off the plane, I traded a casual smile with the air hostess. I suppose she had endured a more depressing Christmas than I had, so I decided upon politeness opposed to complaining about the turkey. I considered cracking a joke, but it was doubtful that she'd understand, and I couldn't bear with having to deal with a bland reaction to my bland humor about bland meats. The first breath of fresh air I took was ironically thin. It lacked oxygen, and by the time I had descended to the concrete runway, my pores were wide open, and the salts of Asia began to trickle chin-bound. I hadn't expected humidity, and was hoping for conditions akin to the south of France. The clear blue sky looked white. I would have called it overcast if I didn't notice the silhouette of a bird passing a lonely cloud. As I headed towards immigration, I began to feel nervous. By law, one must meet certain specifications when entering Australia with intentions of earning an honest wage. First off, I was supposed to possess an outbound flight. Second, I needed to prove I had funds exceeding $2,500. In reality, I had around 36 Singaporean dollars in my pocket and no clues to my departure. No accommodation, bank card, nothing. Just a backpack, a passport, and a suspicious smile. In the end, I reckon my accent served me well. The immigration officer's family had indeed migrated from Scotland several centuries ago. His will to talk of tartans and traditions they'd kept over the years sweetened the idea of being deported. After a spell of fraudulent interest, I was set free into 7,617,930 square kilometers of wilderness, tropical jungles, concrete jungles, alpine shires and organic beaches, all skillfully crafted by the gods of creation, whoever they may be. I had caught a glimpse of Cairns when the plane was landing. It was a small regional city, situated on the Cape York Peninsula, snug in the arms of the tropical north. She looked like an oversized beach resort lacking sand, littered with true blue swimming pools and domesticated palm trees. The lifeless avenues looked like broken branches that had fallen from the animated wilderness that surrounded its husk. The murky waters that confined the city limits were inaccessible and infested with saltwater crocs. This only added to its vulnerability and sad existence. Luckily for me, I wasn't interested in beach life. My cancerous packaging could only handle so much sunlight, and I was glad to focus my attention elsewhere. We checked into the infamous Gilligan's, a huge, overpriced hostel full of Australian holidaymakers. Buff men swarmed around us right, left, and center. Chiseled faces snarled, bearing ivory teeth like feral dogs, shirtless and proud, complete with conventional hard-man tattoos and tight swimwear sporting obvious cock and balls. Their plastic girlfriends clasped to their monstrous arms like trophies, with their unnatural hairstyles and cosmetic faces. They looked like clowns. I could only snigger behind my arrogance, for it was an undeniable clarification of a major Australian cliché. Little did it matter, for who was I to judge? A small and skinny backpacker who couldn't care less about the state of his own health, for maybe I would be infected by their eagerness soon enough. After spending my last dollar on a steak pie and a long night, I opted out and sold my camera to an interested buyer for an upsetting price, packed my backpack, and moved on down the road to a less fabricated reality and dirtier accommodation. We brought in the new year like everyone else, with a wealth of alcohol and a copious amount of unnecessary drama. We indulged our weather-torn bodies with reformed wine that tasted like fishy onions. The once dead avenues of Cairns were brought back to life, a frenzy of filth-ridden zombies set free upon the living. The wolves had emerged, with strength in numbers, and beneath our sallow moon they were feeding on everything devout. Their howlings echoed through the valley and across the ocean, silencing the clamorous coral reefs. The sky was festering with bats. The vampires of the north were wired on the smell of fresh blood. Their sinister forms decorated the starless sky. The pernicious influence of our destruction was blatant and agonizingly historical. I stumbled through the madness. The viral infection had already occupied my brain, and the ability to separate myself from the sad pleasures of being pissed was lost. I decided that I would not make it out alive unless I took my parade as far as possible. Only then would I fall into a vortex of memory loss and self-pity. My peripheral vision was now reduced to a narrow tunnel. Blurry shadows slipped in and out of what was recognizable, occasionally colliding with my lifeless arms. A chorus of reverberated sounds rattled off the skin of my snares, causing a complicated confusion of what was true. I had no idea what was going on. My reality had submerged itself in an avalanche of disregard. The dilution of these godless toxins I had consumed was the answer to my nightmare. But water was scarce and hard to find in this netherworld of fire. I awoke in a trance, dangling from my hammock like a used condom. The mellow haze cascaded across the garden, making fireworks out of insects. In the distance, subtle movements and muffled voices concluded that I wasn't alone. But there was a more obvious clue to my whereabouts right beneath my nose. Secured by my legs, a familiar friend slept gracefully. Like a faithful cat, she purred and warmed my toes. Somehow, in my crippling state, I'd managed to crash through my belongings, pick up my computer, and find solitude in the silent garden, only to then presumably slip into the vortex I had envisioned earlier in the night. I was now entering stage 2 of the process. I began with bitter-sweet sympathy. I held my sun-dried hand to my forehead and let out a pathetic groan. The moanings continued whilst I picked at my crusty eyes. Then I pathetically lubricated my tongue with the remaining saliva that hadn't dribbled out of my mouth. There are several effective ways in which one can nurse a hangover, the consumption of junk food being the most satisfactory method, but unfortunately I'd formed a strong personal law against this. It was the result of a rushed and unorganized New Year's resolution. I had to resort to Plan B, to be actively productive and see out the day with a smile. As the days passed, I suffered faint recollections of the hours I'd lost in my celebrations. There appeared to have been a conversation with a distressed Polish girl who had suffered injuries to hand of her partner, a close encounter with aggressive white men and befuddled aboriginals, and a moment of uncontrollable laughter caused by a remote-control cockroach, only to the dismay of many phobic females. Cairns had set the standards of what was to come, an unwelcome encore of a show I'd tried to leave behind. I had inconsiderately dropped the curtain on a forever engaging audience, for my health was feeling its strain. My defenses had finally buckled, and the house began to raise the silky red fabric once again. I earned myself some treacherous laboring work on a banana paddock, which at the time sounded brilliant. I had it all planned out: savings, living expenses, and leisure, etc. The whole elaborate idea that I would work a few months in the agricultural system was great, apart from the fact my body was in its worst state in years. With a mind full of bananas, the time had finally come to head to work. Tully was situated 142 kilometers south of Cairns on the edge of the Hull River National Park. I took the Greyhound coach en route to Byron Bay. It seemed to me that every soul on the bus sported the same dreadlocked hairstyle, an unfortunate trend that singles you out for a drug inspection. Evolutionary specimens of the 1970s, floating through their lethargic existence to the tedious tones of reggae, pondering over war, corruption, and famine, but never quite sober enough to be taken seriously. Although the resentment felt was obvious, civilization needs such creatures to exist, for they remind us that life is simple. Those who deny the freedom we are blessed have simply imprisoned themselves in a materialistic world where the wealthy and prosperous dominate. In truth, rarely do we own anything. We are in fact owned by the idea of owning nice things, and once we own them, they cling to our narrow-mindedness like leeches, feeding a treacherous fear of loss. The realization of our greed is the key to personal liberation. If you cannot free the world of poverty and its brute dictators, then why not merely free yourself? Bus trips are usually a good chance to catch up on my lack of reading, but I was distracted by the wilderness around me. Although the view was blocked by a dense wall of jungle, occasionally it would open up, revealing layer upon layer of natural beauty. Inspiring scenes of untouched forest and hidden fauna. The magical wildlife that forever weeps beyond our roads has mastered the art of stealth, safe from the hands of mankind and protected by those who care enough. Without notice, we arrived in Tully. It was shantytown, hidden beneath a small mountain. I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe something with a little more character. It was wrong of me to judge this place by its cover. It looked like a collection of heartbreaking buildings that had been neatly stacked on the hillside. The entire settlement seemed little more stable than a house of cards, evidently nicknamed Cyclone City. I wondered why this place hadn't already been blown somewhere over the rainbow into a more imaginative version of Oz. There was only one other soul to be seen, a worn-looking man smoking a cigarette. He was perched on the edge of a 20-foot statue depicting a Wellington boot with a 6-foot plastic tree frog stationed around its ankle. The owners of the farm were complete dickheads. 6 days a week, a bus picked me up alongside 40 other strangling vagabonds at 5 a.m. The journey took about 45 minutes, and the bus was so run down and cold it made Vietnamese buses feel like first-class travel. The work was hideous. It consisted of long, drawn-out 10-hour days humping 60-kilo bunches of bananas back and forth through thick jungle bush infested with deadly spiders, ants, and worst of all, the feared Australian brown snake, which packed a punch of venom that would kill a human within half an hour. On day 2, my neck gave in under the weight of a banana bunch, and I was demoted to a soulless job stacking large plastic bags in the farm warehouse. I did, however, spend an enjoyable day swimming in a river pool called Alligator's Nest, but the small reward was blackened when my ear started to ache a week later from an infection I picked up in the river. Another week later, the dickhead farmers sent me out to a paddock to help plant some trees. With no hat or working sun cream, I collapsed in a heap on the dirt and fell asleep. To my dismay, the dickheads found me in my misery, and with no sympathy or evidence of any empathy at all towards my exhaustion or imposing ear infection, they fired me on the spot. I walked for 4 hours back to town where I was staying and thought of my future prospects. The women who organized my job in the first place talked briefly about possible positions on other farms, but I acted uninterested and she gave up. I sat around for a few days moping. I tried to climb a mountain to clear my head, but gave up about halfway when I came across a colorful spider and a great thick web spun across the track. So I wandered downhill defeated and back to my dirty shack. My situation got worse when I woke up in the middle of the night with bedbug bites all over me, head to toe. I complained to the housekeepers, and they bought me some medical cream. By this point I was sick with fevers and sweating uncontrollably at night and not eating during the day. I was completely deaf in my left ear because of the infection, and my muscles ached with great stabbing jolts whenever I did anything. On New Year's Eve in Cairns, just before I went to the farm, I spoke on the phone with Luna and we made up. She told me she was being stationed in Sydney as part of her job. I said, "Give shout me when you're there, and maybe I'll come visit. Then we can finish what we started." We never made it together in Singapore. Our fallout left a burning desire in me for sex, and the sex had to be with Luna. My inhibitions wouldn't have it any other way. A few days after the bedbug incident, I received a message from Luna. It read, "In Sydney, kiss, kiss, kiss." I read her message with delight and impulsively booked a flight south to Sydney, Australia's Big Apple with my remaining $200. An hour later, I packed my bags and started walking back up the road towards Cairns. When I arrived at the airport, check-in stopped me and asked me to bin a Tupperware box full of cooked pasta and pesto in the bin. I couldn't take it on the plane. I argued with the officer and gave him the hungry Africans how it's a waste of good food, but the bugger was stubborn. He gave me the boring excuses that smelt of power trip soup, so I binned my dinner angrily and boarded in a huff. The plane circled Sydney twice before landing. This gave me the opportunity to gaze helplessly out the small oval window at my forthcoming home. She was massive, stretched across green suburban hills of lush vegetation and inland bays of salt water teeming with watercars and waterhomes, sailboats and surfers. In the center, a majestic tower pierced the atmosphere and hung in the clouds silently. It all looked incredibly big and gentle and motionless. A completely overwhelming landscape of urban jungle. I was excited. The idea of laying Luna down on a mattress and going wild had my heart racing. Luna was bunking in the King's Cross district, so after landing, I hopped on a local bus destined for King's Cross and sat back leaning on my torn backpack and relaxed with my thoughts. When the bus reached the depot, I jumped off with a vibrant hop and headed straight into the blood flow of downtown Sydney. It didn't look quite right. The dreadlocked surfers and young suburban professionals I saw from the plane had been replaced by vacant-looking shadows. Thin, pale faces, cheekbones bursting through their skin, caved in eye sockets that housed dehydrated eyes. Straight-cut denim jeans and smoky leather jackets. My eyes met with a huge black transvestite, her face caped in thick white makeup and purple eyeshadow. Her Adam's apple rumbled as she looked at me and said, "Damn, you is fine." I moved on horrified, weaving my way through bandit phone shops, mini casinos, strip clubs and colorless hostels and guest houses looking for a place called Brady's. The sun was collapsing behind the dilapidated buildings fast when I accidentally stumbled across Brady's, a vibrant red door on the corner of Desperate and Bleakness Avenue. I asked the attendant about Luna. He said he could recall 2 blonde girls checking in, but was unsure if they were still bunking. I checked into their cheapest room, an 8-bed mixed dorm on the noisy first floor. The place was a shithole. When I opened my room door, the hall light encapsulated the skittering of cockroaches. They scrambled nauseatingly underneath some dirty bags and clothes. I paid the guy up front for 2 nights and was now well and truly broke. I sat in the television room patentedly with my book and waited hopelessly for Luna to show up and save the day. The night dragged on. Soulless American comedy and comedy after comedy. Still no beautiful girl with golden hair. Stranger after stranger passing through to the kitchen, saying their bit, asking the same questions backpackers always ask in the commies of hostels worldwide. Where you've been, where you're going, and where'd you come from? I always reply with the same compulsive lie every time. I'm going to Jamaica, Mon, because Jamaica, where I come from, bro. Most askers understood my sarcasm, others seemed to go on endlessly, asking questions about weed reggae. Are you Rastafarian then? To a point where I'd put on a sick Scottish accent and say, "Dare look fucking Jamaican to ya, pal." Sometimes they laughed, but equally they scarpered like those cockroaches back into their holes. I was bitter. A bitter old man waiting for his love in a whirlwind of despair and teenage gap year sensations, maxing their rich parents' credit cards on skydiving and surf lessons, or drugs, rock and roll. My ear was especially sore tonight. I wondered if Luna did show up. Could I even enjoy her limbs the same way I often dreamed of? With this bad ear, the bedbug bites and scabs from my bike crash, I looked hideous. Savage. All cooped up in my portable bedsheet, slumped across the sofa, mumbling at the television set lazy insults and plot flaws. Who would shag this carcass, I thought. I laughed to myself a little bit, then cried a little bit. I'll give her an hour and then fuck this bed, I thought. 2 hours passed and I eventually hit the sack. I lay awake most of the night sweating with my bad ear in the direction of 2 kids having it off next to me. Fair play, I thought. If I had Luna here right now, that might have been me, displaying my instinctual behavior like a mannequin in a department store window. Beautiful. I woke up the next morning to a note that read, "Found you. Busy today, but we'll meet you in the television room at 10 p.m. XXX. This is good, I thought. She knows I'm here, waiting. I wanted to surprise her, but I think I can relax now. I was playing the optimist. I drank some free coffee, ate some free cereal, and spent the day busking with my guitar in the subway. I found a quiet stairwell away from the trains, put out my hat, an Elton mascot turtle Larry, and jammed to myself whilst lying flat on my back without a care. I did this for about 4 hours and made $12, enough to feed me for sure, but certainly not enough to pay for my infested room at Brady's. I bought a hamburger and a Coke and spent the rest of my hard-earned cash on internet. The $4 PH service cleaned me out completely, leaving me desperate for work. I emailed countless ad a CV. I got one reply from a male masseuse. He gave some spiel about how he was working in an office but really wanted to be a masseuse. He wanted a specimen to work on to help keep his hand in the trade. I backtracked to the site I found his ad on and decided it looked shady. Probably just some old pervert looking for young blood. I was desperate, but not so desperate as to prostitute myself. I retreated to the television room and watched another lame film. I considered the possibility of being stood up as the clock neared 10 p.m. I shouted insults at Luna in my head, fits of rage, angry to be kept waiting and the distance I traveled to see her, and she can't even keep a small-time promise she wrote on a dirty receipt. Still cooling a raging burn inside me, I glanced at the clock. Tick-tock, 9:59 p.m., and then out of nowhere she just walked right in, sat next to me and said, "Hedge." It was just like old times. She curled up next to me and opened a bottle of red. I told her about the farm, the flight down, and the pasta I had to throw away. I complained about bedbugs, my sunburn. We reminisced about our only days together and laughed about the fight. It was nice. It felt right. After midnight, we went to my room and quietly fondled and teased each other under the covers, trying not to shake the bunk and wake up my neighbor. It was utterly delicious, her skin so soft against my rugged, burnt leather. Her lips soothing and warm against my pale, cracked, dry ones. She fixed me for a split second. The aches disappeared. The worry left my head, and the happiness seeped in, and at the end of it I lay back and slept hard, without a wink. The next few days were easy-going. Luna understood my situation, and perhaps my vagabond and vague perception of life is what attracted her to me. And besides, she has money, lots of it. I can tell by the clothes she wears, her shoes, her smell, but it was never mentioned. The guy at the reception turned blue on us. One night we came home from a night of dancing and drinking, from some beat underground, bass-rumbling hole in King's Cross, and he was in Luna's bed, half naked. He was roaring drunk and began spewing vulgar ideas at her. He mumbled something like, "I'm gonna fuck you tonight, you little Swedish whore." Luna got the rage, the heat. She lashed out and scalped him across his bald bollocks, and he crept off into the night whimpering. The next morning she complained to the owner. He relieved her of rent for the next week, apologized, and then fired the receptionist cunt whose name was also Elton, like me, right in front of us. Luna winked at him. He looked miserable, completely hung and embarrassed, ashamed almost. I sniggered and thanked the owner. Luna told me she had to go to a meeting in Melbourne. She said which was good, because Selma was there with some guy, and she could spend the weekend with her. She said she could speak to the owner about transferring his weekly rent offer onto me, which she succeeded in doing, by using her fluttering eyelashes. And just like that, she was off again, but she left me another note the following morning, which read, "Hej sot grot, see you on Sunday, TV room, at 10 p.m. XXX. I checked my mail and found a reply, a job offer to work a touring carnival that was passing through Sydney. It seemed legit. I called up the guy, and he gave me a destination and time for Monday morning. I had a job, I had a bed, paid up for 7 days. Things were looking positive. But still, I had but a penny to my name, no real food of substance, and nowhere to go.